Hi, Parliament Community Church. I'm Cam Stuart, the National Director of CCMBC, and I was privileged to be invited to share a devotional with you in this wonderful series that Michael has initiated. I want to talk to you about being the peace of God. Sometimes when I read the Apostle Paul, I wonder if he really means what he says. Of course, I find his ideas about God very compelling and so inviting that I want to learn more about God. But when Paul begins to inform how my theology is to be worked out in everyday life, well, I wonder, is that really possible? But this seems to be the genius of Paul in his letter to the Romans. Paul writes 11 chapters of astounding theology about the grand mercy and grace of God that is provided in Jesus Christ. We, thankless, depraved humanity, are simply left breathless and in awe of being justified freely through Christ. We experience peace with God through Christ. God's abundant grace declares us righteous. We've been set free from sin and are no longer under condemnation. And in fact, we're adopted in God's family. And we can't be separated from the love of God. And then we come to Romans 12. And Paul says, therefore, because of all these great achievements of God in Christ, have these same attitudes in how you live in community. This seems to be Paul's point of application of God's gracious generosity. If God's mercy means anything to you, show it in how you live in community to others in the family of God. It seems unavoidable that if God has lavished his forgiveness, his grace, his mercy, his love on us, we will naturally reflect this in how we relate to others. At least that is Paul's expectation. The attitudes that Paul highlights are the same as that of Jesus. Don't think of yourself more highly than you should. Love must be sincere. Be joyful in hope. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Do not repay evil for evil. And as far as it is possible, live at peace with everyone. God's relentless, sacrificial determination to reconcile us to himself gives no room for us to hold grudges, unforgiveness, hurt, bitterness towards others. When Paul says, as far as it is possible, live at peace with everyone, he leaves us no option other than to not do everything we can to be at peace with those in our relational orbit. The only wiggle room is that sometimes others refuse to be reconciled to us, just as there are those who refuse to be reconciled to God through Jesus. Again, the backdrop to this application is Jesus, who set aside his deity, became a servant of all, embraced the cross to restore us to God. We too must do all we can to restore broken relationships in order to be at peace with everyone. Now, this is the hard yet vital work of following Jesus, being like him to reflect his character and priorities to those around us. In this way, we become the peace of God. So, have you done all you can to be at peace with those in your relational network? And how have your efforts to be at peace with people model the values and attitudes of Jesus, who is the only means of enjoying peace with God? Or like so many I have pastored over 30 years of ministry, you leave to another church to avoid the hard work of peacemaking. If God can reconcile us to himself, surely we can be reconciled in peace with one another. God bless you. And it's been a privilege to be part of this devotional series.